French Spring Festival 2022, the Embassy of France, in collaboration with Alliance Française de Colombo, with the support of Institut Français, hosted a discussion on ecological art by Anoma, which focused on the burning issue of the climate crisis. We spoke to the three panelists, including the moderator and Aurelia, representing the Embassy of France. Good evening. We have with us Aurelia, cultural attaché at the Embassy of France. So Aurelia, tell us about ecological art and this entire concept.
So thank you for being here with us tonight. So the idea is kind of to discuss the importance of art in ecology and vice versa. So how do one kind of help one another? So the idea is just to say that through art you can convey very important ecological messages, and Anoma has been doing this for her entire career, and for us it was really important to put the spotlight on her works and for seven exhibitions on the topic by doing a retrospective, but in the form of a discussion. So this way we can also not only look at her work but kind of address by inviting environmentalists how this can also contribute to environmental climate change. In general, activism.
Okay. So how long did it take for you to, because amidst all the challenges, the French Spring Festival and this particular series, how long did it take and what were some of the challenges?
Well, this specific event has been a big challenge,
right.
because we've been preparing it for a year.
Right.
So it's been quite a long history with Anoma, kind of preparing it and then not being able to put it out because of COVID. So we wanted to do it last year for Earth Day, so that couldn't happen, and then we postponed it to make it appear in the French Spring Festival that we're starting and launching since last week. So we're really happy to integrate this conference in it.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We have with us Savera Veerasinghe, who is one of the panelists at today's discussion. She is the founder of Ananta Sustainables. Savera, tell us, does sustainability and art go hand in hand?
I think so. I mean, the role of art a lot of the time is expressing but also evoking a sense of emotion, and especially with sustainability, I think we're inundated with statistics, numbers, scientific facts, but we all need to then realize and recognize how we feel about the environment and then take action based on that feeling. And I think art has a huge and vital role to play to evoke that emotion and sensation and feeling that makes us want to act.
Which one of Anoma's pieces do you think highlights this message the most?
I mean, some of her pieces I like Deliverance. I like the ones that really remind us that we are part of the environment. It's in our bones, it's in our veins. And that kind of step of just awakening us to not just the crisis, but our role in it and how we are part of the natural world that is all of this is happening.
Okay. How else can art contribute in spreading the message of sustainability? We'll talk about the digital space and about that a little bit.
I mean, I think it's vital. It's not only just opening up the conversation, but it has a completely utilitarian role also, because that's how you can, visuals in the digital world, how do you use platforms, how do you use video, storytelling to really communicate not just what's happening, but who's facing it, who's on the front line, who's having to actually experience this day in and day out, and for us to understand that empathy, the role of empathy, I think, needs to be created and safeguarded and nurtured.
Right. Thank you very much. We have with us Anjali Watson, co-founder and managing trustee of the Wilderness and Wildlife Conservation Trust. She is also one of the panelists at today's discussion. Anjali, let's talk about the importance of environmental sustainability and how does Anoma's collection of arts convey this message?
Okay, so I think I'm going to choose that question to, I think the theme here is ecological art.
Yes.
And since I'm a wildlife researcher and get into the whole ecological side of things, I think there's definitely a space here for art to perhaps showcase what is often not seen for many people, or it's just a fleeting thing, and to maybe bring it into the everyday at a variety of levels, be it at a higher level of art that sometimes Anoma's pieces are, down to very simple street art, kids book art, and make it become an everyday scenario where we are seeing ecosystems, environment, us within it, wildlife spaces and species within it as part and parcel of who we are.
Do you think art can be used as a campaign mobilizer to spread the message of sustainability, conserving the ecology, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. I think today especially, as we're in a very different world today, it seems like mediums are changing. The written word is still there, but visually, I think youth and the younger generation are very much into the visual concept of things. Unfortunately, I think also sometimes the time they can give is very minimized, perhaps due to social media. But art can really come in there and can give that initial impact. So that is one way, and the other way is it's something that can be lasting. If kids sometimes today, sadly, maybe the written word doesn't resonate as much, and the visual perhaps does.
Right. Do you think it can be reached out to the grassroots communities also, the concept of art and spreading this message of wildlife conservation?
Absolutely, because to be honest, I don't think there's a reach out really required because Sri Lanka is steeped in art. Yes. I mean, if you look back in time and if you look even today, from young kids to our artists, we've got fabulous artists, dancers, artists, mural painters, it's part and parcel, I think, of our fabric in very different ways. So I think harnessing that to bring it within other messages, and obviously from my perspective for sustainability, for climate change, for landscape preservation, ecological preservation, it's a must, I think.
Right. Thank you very much. Vihara De Silva is the founder of the Institute of Social Design. She is also one of the panelists at today's discussion on ecological art by Anoma. Shahar, so let's talk about Anoma's pieces of Anoma's artworks, and they're just not pieces of art, but they give out a statement, call for action, and a message, giving out a message on environmental conservation, importance of ecology, etc. Do you believe it to be so, and what are your observations?
Yes, I think that's one reason I'm here, is because I think Anoma's work is many-layered. At one level, you can see something that is aesthetically fabulous, right? And because she comes from a textile kind of thing, there's a lot of texture and a lot of dimensions and things like that. So almost words within words. And then there's another side of her, which is very cerebral, and which is also making sure that her art is there to raise consciousness, to raise awareness, and to make the world in some way a little more self-aware. Yeah? So definitely she is an activist.
Right.
She's someone who deeply cares for the environment, and she's not going to rest in peace till she makes sure that her voice is out there through her art.
What more do you think should take place in terms of spreading the message of wildlife conservation, ecology, etc. Through art to the wider masses? Because we always see art catering to a niche community. what are your suggestions?
Well, one of the interesting things that Anoma also has done, I mean, she's very eclectic and, has this very expensive art. She's gone into street art form, she's gone into installations, she's moving around with lots of different, poets and writers and filmmakers. She's brought in aspects of pop art, which was, the early part of the 60s, 70s, where there was a lot of this sort of call for change through the arts. So I believe that, it's not a matter of high art and low art, especially the younger generation. They have a sensibility that sadly my generation never had.
Right. The moderator for today's discussion is Hasini Haputantri. She is a museologist, arts manager, and today we will question her about, she has a background in history, and she will speak to us a little bit about how art and wildlife conservation go hand in hand, and what are your observations about bringing a piece of artwork on a canvas and how does it project this message?
So I think art is definitely a place where people can explore their ideas for their futures and their common issues that they have to deal with in their day-to-day life. Whether it's about environment or whether it's about political realities, social issues, the canvas is very huge in this arena. So I feel artists are always very sensitive to what's going around them, and they pick on these things to have a discussion with on their canvas. And that also allows us and gives us an opportunity to start a discussion on these issues, because a discussion, a debate, a dialogue is important for people to change their attitudes about a certain issue. For instance, about environment. It might be something that we have taken for granted, and we may not notice what's coming on. Artists in that way can predict the future, and they can often guide us into thinking ahead of time. And I think this is one of the key contributions that artists do to society in every area of life, whether it's in politics, social issues, or environment. And environment today is one of the most critical questions or challenges that humanities face. That's what I think.
Right. Since you have a background in history, an artwork is also, it adds to memory, right? So how can this preservation of an artwork contribute to giving a message to future generations?
Yeah, I think art is a very interesting and informative form of recording realities. We know, for instance, in history textbooks or reports or newspaper footage, these are also ways of recording what's happening for posterity. Like what is present today is history tomorrow. So there are so many different ways of recording it, and for me, art is a very special way, because it goes beyond recording facts and figures, which is what we often see in newspaper reportage, etc., or in school textbooks, etc. So this is a one-sided history. Whereas art has the ability to capture emotion, which is the most important one. It has the ability to capture human suffering, how people struggle with their own reality. So I think that's a very important thing to record, and that's very important for future generations to learn from that experience, not just as facts and figures, but connect with that struggle as humans with emotion. For me, that's the real gift of art.
Thank you very much.